Welcome to my kitchen. It's time to cook. As you can see, the light is developing beautifully as predicted. I set a timer for 5 o'clock. It is 4:30. So we have about a half an hour or so to get this place looking as good as we possibly can. As you can see, the light is starting to creep across, and the longer we wait, the more the light is going to rake from left to right across this scene. Now, as you can see behind me, there are a bunch of what are colloquially known as tchotchkes, and we are going to remove and clean up some of them because as my career has sort of progressed, I have come to learn that the less things that are in photos, the more of a versatile life they will have. It's not like we're shooting these for the kitchen appliance or accessory designer. We're photographing things for the architect and possibly for the materials provider, in this case, these beautiful countertops, or the lighting manufacturer. And the less things that look fake or don't really belong, I mean, I'm sure these are very nice, but they're impeccably propped and styled here, the better chance we have of selling these photos to more people. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm not gonna remove everything and make it totally sterile, but I don't think that we need to have, all of these props all over this kitchen. The first thing I'm gonna do is get this plant out because it's right in the middle, and I do want a nice clean photograph, and this plant isn't really helping matters. It looks fine in real life, but in the photo, a bit busy, a bit bulky, just too much. We're gonna take it out. Now, it's important that before you move anything, you take a picture. Again, I use my very handy iPhone for that. I'm just gonna go around and snap a few quick shots of where everything was so that when we put everything back, it is exactly as it was before we came. Something that drives me insane are fake plants in photos. So personally, I get rid of fake fruit, fake plants, fake flowers, all that stuff comes right out. I am composing a very traditional, very straightforward, very centered, one-point perspective shot. What I'm hoping is going to happen is that that light is going to slash from the upper left corner all the way to the bottom right, and it's going to divide our picture perfectly in half. I don't know if that's going to happen for sure, but I see it beginning to happen, and I'm crossing my fingers that that is what is going to happen. There are a couple things working against us. Seems like the haze is getting a little worse. There's some trees out there, but in any case, it looks like we're going to get this beautiful sunbeam coming straight through the photo, so I've set the composition up around that. That was one of the first things I saw when I came back at just about 4:30, and with any luck, we'll absolutely nail it. Everything is aligned dead center, from the cabinets to the sink to the hood to the table in the foreground, and so it kind of makes sense that the camera's going to be right here. There's really no major other reason to be off-center in here. It's not like there is anything super interesting to the left or the right. That's just a hallway, and that's just an HVAC out the window. So there's nothing major to see there. And for that reason, that's why I'm going to run with my simple one-point perspective. So here's our test shot, and what we're going to do is start cleaning up and simplifying the kitchen. So Colleen, if you give me a hand here, we'll jump in and get this done. Okay, so here is an updated test shot, and as you can see, we have simplified things considerably, and it feels a lot more balanced and a lot cleaner to me immediately. I'm just going to do some final styling here to make sure that we're all perfectly centered. I can use live view on the Cam Ranger. This is one of the reasons I love this thing. I can take the iPad with me and style as I go and make sure everything is nice and centered and that everything makes sense from a visual standpoint. So here's a few things that I did styling-wise that I think helped the photo. In the front of the frame, we have these 3 chairs, and there's 2 sets of them. And as you go back, you can actually see that the 3 pots on top of that counter there continue that rhythm of the spaced out chairs all the way through the photo. So it's kind of like a nice repetition that brings us all the way through. And again, they're dark up front and brighter in the back, so the eye is naturally going to be pulled that way. I've balanced the lowers right with the sink there, with the ceramics on the left, and I put the tree, the little plant, in front of one of the outlets to hide it. On the right-hand side, again, for a bit of visual balance, I've got those 2 low bowls. But nothing to me seems out of place or unnecessary. Before, there was a lot of extra stuff up there, and it was kind of busy, a little bit too much, So by removing some things, I simplified the photo and added a bit of visual interest and pattern and rhythm that wasn't there before. I'm very happy with the styling. There's maybe some tiny little tweaks I could do, but the big thing now is waiting for the light to develop and continue to come across the floor. And as you can see in these test shots, the light is in fact moving from left to right and becoming more diagonal with every passing minute. And an interesting point to me is that these are all very nice, very high-end objects. But even though they're extremely nice things, when there's so many of them, it becomes a visual clutter. And it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, you can have all this great stuff, but if there's too much of it, it's just a little bit overwhelming. And by simplifying, we can make a better photo. All right, so the sun has gotten low enough to sweep all the way across the kitchen. And I think it's time to get the shot. It looks pretty amazing. So, Colleen, if you can turn the lights off for me. We'll keep this consistent with the rest because this is a predominantly day-lit shot. All right, so we'll do a test shot to make sure we're good to go. And oh my, that is beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and do my bracket here. My base exposure is 1/20th of a second at f11 ISO 200. And I'm going to run 5 shots, even though I'll probably only use 2 or 3 of them to put this together. Colleen, if you could throw the kitchen lights on, I'm just going to try it with the lights and see, because it did have this nice little golden warm glow. I'll look at it back in front of the computer and see what I think, but you guys can see both versions for now. I'm going to capture one middle exposure with those lights on that I may possibly blend in after the fact. I do like that light underneath the cabinets in the back. So while in the bedroom, we did fake the sun with our gelled flash. That would be a lot trickier to do over here, as there's a lot more ground to cover, and there's actually a bit of a drop-off outside those windows, and there is a big wall of shrubbery out there. So we'd have to get maybe like 30 or 40 feet back and get that light 20, 30, even more feet in the air to replicate where the sun is. So I'm very glad that the sun was there, and I'm glad that I was able to predict it and not be left sort of holding the bag waiting for the sun to come out or make this look as good as it did. And because we were able to predict, we knew that there would be kind of marginal light in the bedroom. We could use that time to make another interesting photograph that sort of mirrors this one with the light streaming through the windows. So as I've been talking to you, I've noticed that the light is just about to catch the corner on the top right of the fridge, the top left of that backsplash up there. So we'll wait a minute or two and see if that makes the shot any better. Okay, so the light has finally caught that corner and it's going all the way diagonally from left to right. We're going to go ahead and shoot this, and I think that'll be exactly what we need. Same settings as before, just 5 minutes later. Trying to catch that little bit of light going directly diagonally through this wonderful kitchen. All right, so this is looking pretty awesome. The light is already off the corner. We only had about a minute to grab it. Let's take this into post-production and see how it looks. All right, so here we are in Lightroom. Gonna do some post-production on our kitchen image, and this looks honestly amazing out of the camera. I love the shapes that the light has sort of carved out for us. First thing I see right off the bat is the whites are more of a gray. We're gonna have to punch that up in Photoshop. We're a little bit crooked. We are a little drunk here, like this front table line is gonna have to be redone. It's an easy fix, we can just screw that out straight. But on the whole, I'm really happy with this image. I love how we've taken a boring sort of one-point perspective and made it a little bit interesting with all this fantastic light. So let's go ahead and take these into Photoshop as usual. I don't really want to mess with the highlights too much. You can see the further I pull the highlights down, the flatter the image gets, the more contrast we lose, the more difference between the highlights and shadows. Because that light was very soft outside, it's kind of like annoying that the hazy smoke outside made the interior light so easily editable, but the exterior shots with all the smoke are a bit of a nightmare. So I'm gonna bring the highlights down like just a touch. I don't even think I need to touch the shadows. I have shadow detail everywhere. Maybe like a smidge, and I'm gonna apply these to, we'll do all the images, but I really think, I don't know if I'm even going to really need multiple, because look at everything I need here is in the histogram just where I want it. I'll take these two in. I might not use them both, but we'll open these two, the middle and fourth image as layers in Photoshop. Let's go get it done. All right, here we are. Just gonna go ahead and get myself organized here, rename my layers, and I'm gonna get to work on, first of all, like I said, the whites, they don't really seem very bright. They're more of like a middle gray to me, so I'm gonna want to punch up the whites. And in terms of using this dark exposure, I have it if I need it, but I'm gonna see if I can get away with doing everything on this bright image here. So let's go ahead and do some color corrections. I'm going to make a mask. Let's see which one I like best. I'm just gonna go with the RGB here. Make a mask with that. Deselect and add some curves. Again, I want to suck out some of the grayness in the whites here, so I'm just gonna make sure that my selection predominantly is focused on the whites. Go ahead and turn all that stuff off, and I'm going to add a, let's see, I'll do hue and saturation layer. I will reactivate that. I'll do a curves layer. I think, and you know, there's so much you can do. Like I can keep using the same mask to alter the whites. I can use a black and white adjustment layer. Whoops, I'm sorry. I can use a levels adjustment layer, not a black and white. I want to adjust the levels, not actually make the literal image black and white. So there's a lot I can do here. So first I'm going to suck out some of the blues in the highlights. So I'll double click on that and grab, let's see here. I see some like subtle blues. Yeah, there they are in the range hood and in the wall. And I'll take those out. And then I want to brighten up these whites and get them a little more white. So I'm just going to add a gentle curve up on those. And there you can see how much of a difference that makes in the brights. And then there's like, it's almost like a redness in here. I'll do a little hue and saturation adjustment. I don't want to go too far with this. I just want to kind of rein it in. And it should be really subtle. Yeah, but everything doesn't look so wild and out of control. I don't like how I've sort of sucked some of the warmth out of the wood and the light itself, but I do like how the walls have cleaned up very, very nicely. So I'm now going to take out just very gently on this wood here. And if I wanted to, I could, you know, remember in the first lesson when we did the very sort of heavy-handed, like sledgehammer version of this with the white color layer? I could do the same thing here. I can keep reselecting this mask. And I can make these white walls as white as I want them. Now obviously I want it, like, this is looking goofy on the wood down here, but that's okay. I can mask that out. With a soft brush. And as you can see, that made some very subtle, again, all of these are just piece by piece sort of pushing and molding my image to where I want it. But I don't even know if I need that. There's the, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so sterile when you go pure white. So I'll just be very subtle with that one. And we have levels here. So there's tons of ways you can mess with this. You can pull your whites down and brighten them up. But I don't want to go, like I said, I don't like living in styrofoam houses. So I'm not going to push it too far. And I'll group all this together. And there you can see the difference that we've made. And I like it overall. I just don't maybe like it so much on the wood. I love the way that golden sunlight works on that wood. So I'm going to paint it out there. Except for that range hood. I want those blues gone. Alright. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Go ahead and add a curves layer over the whole thing for a little contrast. That almost feels like too much. So I'll go to 50% on that. As you can see, I love the subtle edit, you know? It's really helpful for keeping things natural, and it helps cover your tracks when you have to do some more heavy-handed compositing. So I'm thinking this looks pretty good. I do think I will add a little bit of a vignette in Lightroom. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up these shadows. I want that to be a nice straight line right there, rather than whatever is going on here. So I'm just gonna very gently sort of push this over a little bit. With the clone tool. And make sure that we have a nice shadow that's nice and straight down the left-hand wall. Looks like I went a smidge too far, so I'll just mask it out. There we go. All right, that looks really good. Let's go ahead and clone out some of these warts on the ceiling. Make a new layer. Clean up. And again, I get a lot of comments when I do this, like, why are you taking out the lights? I mean, a lot of it is, honestly, I just want to deliver the cleanest image possible. And my clients ask for it all the time. I think what happens is, now these are very, very well done lights, so it really depends on the home and the room and everything else. But a lot of the time, what ends up probably happening is, you know, the architect will specify a certain light, and then the homeowner realizes they can save $100 a light by going for a bit of a cheaper option, and the architect is just like, just take them out, I don't care. That will happen constantly in architectural photography. All right, I can tell this is going to be a nightmare, this little line here. I don't think Content Aware is going to do a good job. Yeah, did a pretty good job there. Let's try this side. Yeah, so I'm just going to grab like a whole chunk. And I'm going to add a curves layer here. And see if I can just blend it in. I am a filthy cheater. I'm just... Photoshop to me is just looking for ways to make your life easier. There we go. Over here we have this stuff. I'm kind of torn on these lights. I feel like on one hand they add to the graphicness of our composition, but on the other hand, they're also distracting. these guys here. I'm gonna pull them out. I can hear some of you guys. Why would you do that? But since I'm in charge, I'm gonna make this as clean as I can. All right, that looks really nice. There's some like weird reflections over here. Let's take those out. Okay, that looks superb. I'm not worried about the windows. There's nothing to see out there. I turn this on. It's just smoky white walls, so I'm gonna leave it bright. I think this looks fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and save this back to Lightroom, and we'll go finish it off there. Okay, here we are in Lightroom, and just a few little tweaks, little texture, little clarity. And yes, this can be done in Photoshop, but I find it somewhat convoluted, and I just think it's easier to do it here in Lightroom when I can just play with some sliders rather than get super involved with layers and masks and all that stuff. Little vibrant, little saturation, and let's go ahead and do our transform. That looks pretty good. Feels a smidge off. Maybe I wasn't standing in the middle, but yeah, that looks good. And I'm gonna crop this. Let's see. Maybe 16:9 is the way to go. A little bit in, a little bit more in. Can I get away with that? I feel like I want some headroom though. Oh, geez. No, I think it's 16:9. And I think I like a little drama. I just feel like there's no headroom here. No, I'm just gonna have to wing it with a random aspect ratio. There we go. There is our finished shot. So let's go back on location. We got a few more shots as the light begins to fall.